Our commitment to social democratic principles means that we will work to make workers receive fair wages and benefits, be treated with dignity at work, and have fair and equal opportunities for training and promotion. We'll also provide other forms of support as provided for under pieces of legislation related to work safety and workmen's compensation. We will negotiate wages fairly and transparently and consider inflation and other cost of living indices. Our focus when it comes to creating decent jobs will be the promotion of public and private partnerships in the construction and manufacturing sectors, agriculture, forestry, and fishery industries. We will establish national employment centers in order to create an avenue for youth employment. And we will incentivize businesses that pick or recruit from the National Employment Center database. They will get tax breaks for employing people from the databases. During COVID, we recommended that at times where workers lose their jobs and are unemployed, it should be possible for there to be a scheme where part of their social security savings is paid to them as allowances until they can find another job. And we suggested it, but it fell on deaf ears. We intend to implement a 24-hour economy. And by this, we will provide incentives in terms of reduction in corporate taxes and other exemptions to businesses that will sign up to the 24-hour economy initiative. And if we remember, in the past, but then we must also look at the security side and make sure that we provide them with security.
Moreover, the 2024 budget was prepared recognizing the 2024 elections, the implementation of the IMF-supported post-COVID-19 program for economic growth, the debt restructuring program, security consideration, government's growth strategy, and leveraging climate finance to support the growth strategy. When you look back at the past 7 years, the improvement in social services to education, health, and transportation to ensure opportunity for social mobility for all.
2024 is an election year, and it is often the case that no one needs to be reminded that fiscal discipline is often placed at the back burner in the quest for electoral fortunes. Mr. Speaker, overspending is often the order of the day in an election year. To satisfy unplanned campaign promises, projects are hurriedly commenced without dedicated funding sources. Organized labor is assured of improved condition of service without regard to its impact on wage bill, among others.
There's nothing there. And I put this picture here to represent this gentleman that I call Patrick. He's broke. Asking him, thinking that he's going to change things for you is misguided. So, first of all, I think all of us have to, and this I'm speaking to the man in the street, he has to understand that Abai, Patrick, there's no money, we are broke. And anything we do, we have to situate it within this context. Right? And listen, some of the things are there. Look at what has happened. This year, January to August, we raised 79.1 billion. We've spent 104.6 billion. What has changed? We borrowed 25.6 billion. By the end of the year, guess what will happen? We estimate we will raise 133 million. First of all, I want to raise my hand and say, this 133 million, all our extrapolations, and they don't get there. They get around 118 million, right? And you expect to spend another whopping 173 million? and borrow 39 billion, another 173 billion and borrow 39 billion. Our behavior hasn't changed. So what is it? You are removing taxes on what? Electronic vehicles. If you own an electronic vehicle in this room, raise your right hand. Hey! And my listeners, if you own an electric vehicle, raise your right hand. We have one. And forgive me, the women are out there shouting, sanitary pad, sanitary pad, sanitary pad. Me, I'm saying, Oga, my lady, be careful. You know why? Read it very carefully. It's for locally produced sanitary pads.
Yes.
I beg you, go to your average supermarket, check the brands there, and check how many of them are locally produced. There's only one guy, Sunda, who's doing this. There are other companies, they've collapsed. So before you start getting excited and jumping up and down on sanitary pad, please confirm that the one you're using is locally produced and it will be affected.
So you saw my smile, and I'm saying that I'm following the conversation. I do hope that you are following it as well. So that's some thoughts on the economy. You heard the former president, John Dramani Mahama, who is seeking to come back. You heard the minority leader, Honorable KCL Atoforsen, who is a finance person, and then Joe Jackson as well, and different dimensions on of their thoughts on the budget, which was read on Parliament. And of course, you heard the finance minister himself, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, and some of the highlights that we've given you and what some people think. Well, tonight we take the bit of Trades Union Congress. They have put out what they call the Workers' Manifesto. We are going to delve into that and practicalize things. Of course, there is the figures which we talk about each and every day, the macroeconomic indicators, the microeconomic indicators, you go into economics, and so on and so forth. For us, tonight, we want to practicalize it for you. What's happening on the tomato market? What's happening on the onion market? What's the Trades Union Congress talking about? Importers and exporters. What's happening at the port? So you want to stick and stay with us tonight. Tonight, I bring you the discussions with an expert who works with the Trades Union Congress. So you want to stick and stay with us. When I come back, we'll delve straight, and I'll put the number on the screen there. It's been back and forth of what people think, but you still should share with us what your thoughts are on the budget, what your anticipation is in the year 2024. What exactly are you expecting? It's a political year, and for us, in the space of business and current affairs, we're expecting the dynamics of the economy to change. What are you also expecting? Do you expect money in the system in 2024? Do you expect your business to be booming? Put up your consent to us when I put the number there. We'll try as much as possible to share it. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, so you're welcome back from the break. And let me first of all introduce to you my guest seated in the studio. He is in the person of Dr. Kwabena Nyakun Otu, and he is the director, Labor Research and Policy Institute, Trades Union Congress. Doc, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
I hope you're doing very well.
We are managing.
We are happy to have you here anyway.
Thank you.
But you're managing with the economy. Is it not going well for you?
Yeah, managing Amiga salaries. Yeah.
Amiga salaries?
You know, salaries in Ghana are low.
But
that's a fact.
Comparatively, is it compared to other salaries across Africa or other salaries across the world or the globe? What's your
compared to
basis
countries at comparable levels of development, including those in the West African sub-region, and also compared to cost of living, compared to the poverty line. If you take our minimum wage of just about, until recently, 14 Ghana cedis.
You have a 23% increment.
Yeah, but that does not still take us any far. our wages are low. It compared to the cost of living, it doesn't really take workers home.
They get stuck on the road.
Somehow. That's why people say Ghanaian workers are magicians.
Well, I think...
We manage.
I think I will side with you on that because I have a lot of people around who finish their salaries even before the middle of the month.
Yeah.
But is it not the case of abnormal expenditures, not living within our means, the kind of orientation we have as people? You have young people today who want to own, for example, iPhones, who are first entry level workers.
So those things can be there, but take the average teacher or average immigration officer who works at the airport and stays at down someone and has 2 or 3 kids, renting a room for maybe a chamber and hall for 1,500 cedis. Remember that worker subsists on the single spine with an average pay of about 1,800 Ghana cedis. So for the basic things of life, housing, accommodation, transport, food, those things are woefully inadequate to enable workers have a decent living.
But that person with 3 kids must have gone to or been in the workspace for about at least 10 years.
Yeah, but that is also where you see the difficulty. So having worked for 10 years and you are receiving just about 2,300, 2,500, it's rare difficulty for workers. Yeah.
I mean, this is a bit of a diversion from what we are supposed to be discussing. But let me ask you this very last diverted question, and then I'll come back to what do you think is the problem? I mean, you have researched a lot. You are in the space of the economy. You provide jobs for people. You're making sure, I mean, you're doing your bit to make sure that the country is on its feet. And we are in this current state. We've had, for example, the NPP government promise us that they would take us from taxation to production and so on and so forth. We've had governments upon governments. If to say they are doing their bit or maybe they are not doing enough, what do you think is a problem with us?
It's a multifaceted problem. We've had a problem of history. Historically, our wages in Ghana have been low. It goes back to when wage employment started in this country. But if you take those on central government payroll, even though we say that the wages are low, we also know that the total compensation is taking a chunk of tax revenues. Okay. Part of the problem is inequities in the way wages are allocated. So you have teachers, nurses, doctors receiving very low pay. Then you have, say, Article 71, those in the state enterprises receiving very, very, very high pay. So there's a huge amount of wage inequities. That also accounts for the fact that the bulk of the people providing public services to the people of Ghana are receiving low wages compared to the very few at the top echelons of the public service that have everything at their disposal. High pay. Some of them retire on their salaries and they don't even contribute to pension, but they earn the best form of pension in the country.
I'm sure we still have to be able to move away from that because I was going to say that the Trades Union Congress should be the mother of all of these systems, and you should be able to protest that.
We do.
You should be able to protest the ex gratia, for example, for Article 71 holders, and a teacher with a meager salary would work for over 30 years and go home without even a car to be able to drive. And you are not protesting that yet.
But you know, the questions about ex gratia will take us the whole evening.
I know. So
we have been protesting on those issues.
So if you just tuned in, you are watching Dr. Kwabena Nyako Otu, and I've already introduced him as a Director, Labor Research and Policy Institute at the Trades Union Congress. We are happy to have him tonight, and tonight we are talking about the Workers' Manifesto and the 2024 budget. So the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, had been in Parliament some few days ago to talk to us about the 2024 budget, which he says has or is turning the corner. The country or the government has turned the corner. About 8 tax reliefs which some people are happy about. And we played a video to you. There is some objections at some levels also to this tax relief. So I would come back to it. I see that my producer has put that on. But I want to ask Doc. Doc, you're not happy with the budget that was read, are you?
We have not made any comment on the budget. And that, whether we are happy or not, is something that ought to be a structured decision by the leadership of the TUC. So far, we have not made any comment on
But what's the euphoria? What's the energy towards? Is the energy that this budget is positive, is taking us into the expectations of economic thinking, or?
So the energy for us in labor in the TUC is very low, not just because of the specific budget. In times past, you would have seen that we would quickly have put out something as our comment, even if it's preliminary. But you see, once the IMF is here, it takes a lot of things from us, in the sense that we think that regardless of what you do, government and the finance ministry is looking to the IMF benchmarks and in meeting them. So they dialogue with you for days, for weeks, but at the end of the day, it is what will satisfy the IMF. It's not about what the internal stakeholders are saying. And we made this thing clear when we objected to Ghana going to the IMF. Our point is that once the IMF is here, your government no longer listens to you. Even if they talk to you, they are not listening.
No matter the contributions, but when the IMF came in, you had your own contributions towards for example, the domestic debt exchange program, towards the entire reformation agenda.
So our contribution in that regard was merely to safeguard our pensions for workers. We know the pensions were... I
remember.
So we thought that any program, regardless whether from the IMF or from wherever quarters, we needed to do whatever we have to do to safeguard the pensions from further erosion.
From further erosion to anyway. But let me come to the Workers' Manifesto. What you call the Workers' Manifesto? Is that a parallel manifesto to the manifesto read by the Minister of Finance?
So somewhere in our manifesto, we say that the Minister of Finance didn't read the manifesto. It's a budget.
I read the budget. I mean,
it's the politicians, the political parties that present manifesto. And somewhere in that manifesto, we have stated that the economy of Ghana, and for that matter, society, is too important for us to leave it only to the politicians. And it is important that the stakeholders, the major folk, do not only talk, but we put together our own ideas and our own vision of what Ghana, the kind of Ghana we want. Okay. So this manifesto actually is a consolidation of all the things the TUC has been saying over the past few years. In terms of how we manage ourselves, economically, governance, social policy, and all that. That is what we seek to do. So we now have a consolidated document from which all union members can speak to. And this will then form the basis for our engagement with government, with political parties, with other civil society organizations.
Yeah. I'm going to go into the details of it one by one, because you have, I think, about 4 or 5 thematic areas where you think government should be focused on to build the economy, the social, the economy, like you just mentioned, government, labor, and so on and so forth. But if you're watching us, so the TUC has put out the Workers' Manifesto, what they think the economy should look like, and that should be critically looked at or assessed or taken into consideration because of where they are coming from, because of their background, because of the area that they deal in. We are also asking you that our number is on the screen. You can put up, please do not call. We will not be able to pick up calls. Put up your text message or WhatsApp message or your SMS on what you think the economy should look like, and we would put that across. Let me come back to Doc from the TUC. I would allow him to outline the major points and take us through what they think it should look like. If we have time, we'll look at the 24-hour economy by former President John Dramani Mahama, if he gets the opportunity to come back again, what he means by that and what they think about it, and again, the tax reliefs. So let me allow you some time to run us through what the manifesto is pointing to, and if it is taken into consideration by any of the political parties, what we should expect.
Okay, thank you. So the manifesto is organized around 6 policy areas, mainly. The first has to do with social policy.
Okay.
So we talk about the economy, but Ghana is more than the economy. It's a society. So social policy is important. Then we talk about economic policy. We talk about labor market policy, energy and power policy. And then governance, that is politics, how we govern ourselves. And the final leg of the manifesto is climate change and the environment in which we find ourselves. Now, talking about social policy, our centerpiece is on human development. And our vision is that, or our view is that regardless of what we do in this country, we need to develop the Ghanaian. That is first and foremost. So we are looking to policies and programs that will expand our human capabilities, our capability to do something for ourselves and for others. So we go to school in this country, and we seem to have enough capacity to speak good English. We want capacity to produce something that the world needs, that satisfies our own needs, not just to talk. Okay. So we are seeking programs that expand our human capabilities and exploit our full potential as a people. And under this human development policy, we talk then about things like ensuring that we have food security in Ghana, ensuring that we have affordable, decent housing for Ghanaians, ensuring that we have good education. All Ghanaians that want to go to school have good education, and not just the numbers. We also have quality education. We have good quality health care for Ghanaians and many other things. Now, if you take, say, food security, we know that in spite of all the progress we have made, the evidence is pointing to the fact that a large number of Ghanaians are food insecure. Now, tell me what you can do with a population that is hungry. We think that we need to solve the food problem in this country to release the energies of Ghanaians. That is the only way you can allow Ghanaians to think freely about other important things of life. If people are hungry, what else can you do with such people?
It's a basic need. If you are not able to satisfy, people wouldn't have.
Fortunately for this country, we have arable lands. We have good weather, rainfall patterns. And we have a teeming youth whose energies can be channeled to till the land to give us the kind of food security that we need in this country. We haven't done well in that area. We have also not done well in housing. If we claim to have done well in this country, it should be reflected in the living apartment, in the living quarters of Ghanaians. Go around the country and see where Ghanaians are living. We think that it is deplorable and something must be done about it. What we are calling for example, in housing, is mass social housing as a public good. Let's house Ghanaians well. Let's feed Ghanaians well. Let's educate Ghanaians well, and let's provide Ghanaians with good health care.
So the state, let me not cut you in. For the social policy, the state housing company, for example, has been putting up houses and doing advertisements all over. Even though they call it affordable, some people have said that it is not.
That's precisely the problem. So you have the private sector providing something to the tune of about 4,500 housing units. But the prices they quote on the market is way above the income of Ghanaians, including our members who are workers. But even if they are not that expensive, nowhere in the world do people carry 300,000, even Ghana cedis, let alone dollars, at one go and pay for a house. Our mortgage system is not working because most of the mortgage is dollar-linked when people are receiving salaries in cedis that are depreciating on a daily basis. It is difficult. So we know that housing policy has failed. All government's initiative in the name of affordable housing, some of them are even not completed. And when they get completed, they are not affordable by any standard.
But some people think the primary problem, before you go to the other ones, the economy, of course, we are getting into the economy, is the issue of exchange rate, is the issue of inflation, is the issue of maybe control even from the MPC, and so on and so forth. We are having very high inflation rates, high exchange rates. So, for example, if I'm in the real estate industry, even the government's builder, the state housing company, is not able to keep the prices low, because tomorrow the price of cement is rising, the price of iron rods is rising, the price of the building materials are just rising at a very top speed, galloping speed. And so if you keep your prices in the city, by tomorrow you will not have enough profit to even build again.
The problem, what you have described is correct, but it's a problem of an import-dependent economy, where all the raw materials for doing anything in this country have to be imported. It doesn't have to be so. We have established scientific institutions, the Building Resource or CSR,
BRI,
yeah.
and those
All those people are there. And one of the things they have said they will do is to develop local materials for building. What happened to those problems? Okay. So if you have an economy that is attuned to just importing everything, you will have the problems that you have described to us. But then it also comes to how you manage the economy to maintain a stable exchange rate, stable inflation, low inflation, not necessarily single-digit inflation, but a stable, low inflation that allows businesses to plan. The fundamental problem is that this country has stopped producing anything. And all that we do, from building materials to food to everything, we are importing. Toothbrush. And if you do that, the exchange rate will expose you.
Of course, if you become an import-dependent economy. But my problem has been what has happened over the years that we haven't been able to move, at least, a bit towards production.
I mean, then we are almost moving into the realm of, what do you call it, economics. I mean, what has happened basically is that we have run an economic model in the last 40 years based on what is known as the Washington Consensus. Okay. Just grow the GDP regardless of the source. So you can have high GDP growth because you have had an oil being produced in 2011 and your GDP growth hits 15%. How exactly do those growth impact the lives of your people? Okay. So just grow the economy, try to maintain a low deficit, try to achieve a balance of payment surplus, stabilize the macroeconomy. In this case, have a single-digit low inflation. Okay. Now, this kinds of economic policy model is what we have run over the last 40 years. In this model, occasionally we have some good growth, but it's only growth that is in the books with very limited impact on the lives of people. Okay. Some other countries and some societies have run something which is contrary to what is described by the Washington Consensus. So take the Chinese. Okay. They did not dismantle their import controls. Even though they were exporting, it becomes very difficult to export to their own country, except if it's raw materials, which they need for their own production. They did not dismantle their state enterprises. So in this country today, state enterprises have become a punchline. So we want to privatize TUC, we want to privatize ECG. At the same time, we are going for loans from Sino Hydro, which is a state-owned enterprise, and they are building our roads and they are building our bridges. So this model of neoliberal economic liberalism, in which you open your borders freely, trade liberalization, you destroy your domestic enterprises, you privatize your state-owned enterprises, you allow the market to decide the major prices on and everything.
When your base, for example, SMEs and your production base is not strong enough to be able to meet the other competitors who have access to your markets.
Exactly. So over the last 40 years of liberalization, we have seen some increase in our export, but that pales into insignificance if you compare with the rate
imports
of growth
that have come.
And we are just importing everything. I mean, to check that, one of the things we import most into this country is the thing we call the intestines. So you go to the shop bar and people are requesting towels and yamadia.
Yes, and
most of them are imported.
That's serious.
And it's serious that we carry dollars to bring some of these things into this country. So the basic problem is the economic model. And that economic model is neoliberal economics based on Washington consensus. What has been determined in Washington by the IMF and the World Bank as the appropriate way to grow your economy.
There is a concern. This is also a bit of a diversion, but before, I would allow you to come back to the points of your manifesto. But based on what you're saying, I think I read something last week or 2 weeks ago, a concern by an ardent viewer of the bottom line, who thinks that even the things we export are produced by expatriates. And so even the dollars that come in, the monies that come in, that we are supposed to balance off our problems, for want of a better word, is owned by people who still send the money back out.
So our gold production is in the hands of foreigners.
Yes.
Our oil production is in the hands of foreigners. Our diamonds, manganese, all of them are in the hands of foreigners. So if you have an economic crisis, you can't leverage on your abundant resources because they are not in your hands. But even if you take manufacturers, most of the things that are being manufactured here, the few manufacturers we do, are being done by foreigners. Because, and we have in our manifesto, our investment policy. That investment policy target foreign investment and shower them with mouth-watering fiscal incentives, tax breaks and all that. Those same incentives are normally not available to domestic investors. What are we doing to ourselves?
If you're watching us, this is the bottom line. And we have in the studio Dr. Kobna Nyako, who is the director, Labour Research and Policy Institute of the Trades Union Congress. We are talking about the Workers' Manifesto. I will take this quick break. When I come back, I will see the other points of the Workers' Manifesto. We'll also talk about former President Mahama's 24-hour economy, and we'll round up with the tax reliefs of the Minister of Finance and the impact of those tax reliefs. You want to stick and stay with us and keep sending in your messages. I'm getting quite a number of them. When I come, I have one or two that I'll read, and I'll begin the discussions again. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Right, you welcome back from the break. This is the bottom line, and we still have the Trades Union Congress Director of Labour Research and Policy Institute here in the studio. We are talking about the Workers' Manifesto, and he's duly explained to us the social policy and a bit of the economy. We still have the labor governance climate. Can you take us briefly through that? Then we'll come to former president's message, let me say campaign message of running a 24-hour economy.
Okay, so on economic policy, we are not happy with the model of economic development that we have had. We want to switch away from extractive commodity-based production into manufacturers. We need to industrialize. And here we are not saying that we want to manufacture aircraft. We should be able to manufacture some of the basic things this country needs, rather than importing everything from outside. And to do that, we need to be able to check our interest rate policy. The process where the interest rate has become a tool for the Bank of Ghana, the only tool to control inflation, has produced for us one of the highest interest rates in the world. And this we must have a way of readjusting that. We also are not happy with our trade policy. We need to strategically intervene in the external market to ensure that some of the things we can produce here, we don't have to import those things into the country. We agree to the fight against inflation. Inflation needs to be fought, but we are not too sure about the way the Bank of Ghana fights inflation. We also are not too comfortable with the role of Central Bank, the Bank of Ghana, in economic development. Their act says that their only mandate is to fight inflation. That bureaucracy is too important and too huge to be accorded only that single mandate of fighting secondary inflation. We think that they need to do more. They need to go back into the history of economic development and see how central banks use their muscles to affect credit allocation, for example, rather than simply saying that, okay, inflation is about to rise, so we also
let's increase MPC rates to control it or bring it down, and so on.
Give them a broader role. The role they play today about inflation targeting the single-digit inflation or whatever it is. That approach to central banking was pioneered in New Zealand.
Yes.
Yeah, some 30, 40 years ago. Now, the New Zealand Central Bank has amended its own mandate. Now they have a dual mandate. In addition to fighting inflation, they also want to look at growth and employment. Our central bank ought to be doing something similar. Then we have other policy areas like labor market.
Yes.
We know that one of the most important challenges facing young people in Ghana is jobs or lack of jobs. So people have been educated at high cost to their families and to themselves, hoping to find a job, but they don't have job. It is important that we address this conundrum. By providing people jobs, you are allowing them to contribute to their own self-development, but also to the development of our society. It is important that we look at that. And to be able to do that, we need to produce. To be able to...
So I was just going to ask you that we have just mentioned the production. Is it not the baseline for the economy?
Exactly.
Currently, that we should be able to move away from all the other things and get into proper production, manufacturing, from agri to manufacturing, before the service issues and the service economy that we are almost targeting every now and then. Well,
we need to be able to
think
produce.
We are not there yet.
Yeah. We need to be able to produce, and to be able to produce, we must support domestic industry. They are paying too much taxes. They are also faced with high interest rates, faced with utility bills that are unsustainable for them. And in addition to all of that, we have opened our borders, and they are faced with
for the liberalization you are talking about.
Unsustainable competition. Nobody does that. By exposing your fledgling infant industry to that kind of competition from matured firms that are already also being subsidized by their government. And to cap that, there's this distinguished British economist called Nicholas Cardo. He used to tell his students 3 things about development. The first is that to develop, you must industrialize. To industrialize, you must protect yourself. That is the second thing. And the third thing he says is that anybody who tells you otherwise is being dishonest with you. And if that is the case, we have people who tell us to liberalize.
Yes.
So if you check the IMF document, one of the fundamental conditionalities for the loan, there are 4 of them. One of them is the fact that you need to keep your
economy open
to trade. You don't have to do anything to restrict trade. Okay. So that is the labor market aspect of our policy. And then we also have energy and power. We know that these are good ingredients for industrializing your economy. You need affordable power to be able to industrialize, a lot of it. But we also know the challenges we have had in the last decade with power. Those challenges have not completely gone away. Okay, so the cost of procuring power is still very high, and user tariffs are still very high. And there are a number of challenges in the energy sector, with ECG, with TOR, with all the state enterprises within the energy sector. We need to face them if we are to have a chance at developing this country. Then we also talk about governance, the politics. And here our concentration is on how we have governed, or if you like, misgovern ourselves. And our concentration is on the 1992 Constitution. We support the call for a review of the Constitution. In fact, we even want to push further and say that that Constitution needs to be replaced.
Scrapped entirely.
And I'm not using the word scrap. We need, because you see, there are just too many challenges with the Constitution. And I just don't see how an amendment here and there will face those challenges. So we probably need to come together, okay, and it should be part of reconciling ourselves, whittle down our differences, and having a consensus, put in a different document that allows us to govern ourselves properly, in unity. And then our last...
Just before you go on to the last one, do you think that our governments in the Fourth Republic have failed in their governance?
They have
failed.
I mean, the Fourth Republic has given us the longest stability politically. Okay, we have managed to practice democracy for all this while. It has got its own benefits for us, advantages. Some of the economic and social progress we have chopped either in health, education, nutrition, and all those things, as a result of the stability you have enjoyed. Okay, but there are also fundamental challenges going forward. And it will be difficult to entirely just say that they have failed. If it's a failure, it's a societal failure. It's not just to blame one or two people for that kind of failure we have.
The governments have the mandates of, all the things that we are talking about, provision of employment, one of the major indicators of the economic development. You talk about the economy, you talk about social policy. For instance, an entire social policy in the space of education, in the space of health, in the space of all the other things. You talk about energy and power. We need sustained energy and power to run the economy. And these are where we have had, we even talk about the structure of the economy. We have just mentioned that it's not been good enough, an import-dependent economy where we are not having the requisite production to buttress the things we need to do. And these are governments that have been at the helm of affairs who should have made sure that at least within the space of 1992 up until now, we should have been inching towards a restructured economy.
So my response to your analysis is that clearly there has been successes, but there has also been failures. So for example, in 1992, about 51.2% of Ghanaians were classified as poor. By 2017, that number had come to about 24%. Today, we still have about 11-point-something%, about 2.7 million Ghanaians that are extremely poor. That is still a huge number. But remember that we have come from somewhere.
Yes.
So on that basis, it's difficult to simply say that there's outright failure everywhere. There are some progress. If you read the books, and if you had been around for the past 30 years, you see that there has been some progress. It could have been better. And in some areas, it has been very disappointing. On the jobs questions, for example, it has been very, very disappointing.
About 12.1% now of unemployment.
In actual fact, the most important aspect of it is that about 1984, 20% of jobs were in the formal economy. Today, just about 12% of jobs are in the formal economy. So we are informalizing the economy even as we register economic growth. That's a catastrophic failure on our part. We have
even with the digitization agenda and so on and
all
so
that. Yeah. So the other last part of the policy area is climate change. So and environment. We know that we have not taken good care of our environment. We have cut down trees. We are filling every space we can with concrete. And that is, in one word, that are producing heat. So we all see the heat waves on the horizon. Now, unfortunately for us, Galamsey entered the fray, and we have removed large amount of forest cover. Our water bodies have been destroyed. We need to do something to reverse the situation. And to do that, we need to deal with Galamsey in another way. We should ban mining, whatever, whether legal or illegal, from rivers, forests, protected forests. We should not do that. But we should also ensure or actually launch a major program of afforestation to reforest our society, our environment.
There's been the tree planting program, which is done by the Ministry of, Lands and Natural Resources. There was one recently, but we haven't seen the impact yet, and we haven't seen...
And we shouldn't wait for 1 full year before we are all called up again to come and plant.
I agree. I agree on that. Let me pick this. Our time is technically up, but let me pick this. I'll come and pick your mind on the GM's proposal of a 24 round work. Ibrahim from Tamale says this budget will take Ghana, I'm sure you want to write, won't take Ghana anyway. Even if a worker earns 10,000 Ghana cedis, the person will still suffer because things will not get better. The current state of the Ghanaian worker keeps worsening day in, day out. Our real wage keeps diminishing as a result of rising cost of living. We urge government to work on the macroeconomic indicators as well as paying workers the right wage they deserve. Workers continue to suffer, and just the few top echelons continue to enjoy from the animal farm we have created called Article 71 office holders. So Doc had actually spoken about this early on. I urge the TUC to continue the fight for the ordinary worker. Greetings to Dr. Kobna Nyakun Utu from Iben in Koforidua. Nana Okuame Watson in Ablekuma Central says 2024 budget is a growth-centered budget which will move the economy back to track after the devastating twin disasters that has crippled the economy. I am very optimistic that 2024 will be a good year. Nana Okuame Watson, Ablekuma Central sent in that one. Good evening, Mr. Host. Can Nanado collapse Ghana's economy due to incompetency? Idi in Tabora sent in that one. Okay, well, lots of messages coming in. My time is running very fast. But were you you must have been there when the president said, the former president talked about the 24-hour economy. What do you and the TUC make of this?
So we have welcomed that because it potentially can offer opportunities for creating more jobs. Okay. And as the Secretary General put it, if you can't get a job in the morning, you can at least get one in the afternoon or in the evening. So we welcome any initiative such as this one that has the potential to create jobs and put good young people, young Ghanaians at work. People are just too frustrated looking for employment, and we welcome such initiatives.
But people have made the argument that the industries that require a 24-hour run are already running. If you talk about some of the pharmacies, for example, if you get into Osu where people come in during the night to buy medicines, there are pharmacies there running 24 hours.
So in Osu, you are right, but not in my area. So if the former president can manage to provide the environment and the incentives for the pharmacies around the country to open 24 hours, there will be some young people in there offering services.
And the reliance on the fact that people can even wake up in the night and still get the medication.
And if you take, for example, the fuel stations, they used to operate 24/7, but they stopped for security concerns.
Yes.
And the former president made mention of the fact that they want to provide security for them to be able to operate 24/7. So we broadly welcome it, but we also think that it needs to be properly articulated. Okay, there are some areas it can work. There are some areas it may not be able to work. And those things need to be properly articulated by the former president and his team.
Let me pick your comment quickly. We cannot stay on that because of time. But your comment quickly on the tax relief. See, tax relief, some people are happy with it.
I mean, one of the things we have said in this country is that there are just too many taxes. So again, we will welcome anything that offer relief for individuals, but also for businesses. But in this manifesto, one of the things we have said consistently is that we need to switch our incentives. So whether in the form of tax relief or subsidies or tax exemptions, we should switch it away from those mining gold, for example, to those manufacturing. You don't need to incentivize people to mine gold in Ghana.
They will mine anyway.
They will mine anyway, but if they have an assembly plant producing cloth, they can put it in Togo or Benin.
Exactly.
So you need to incentivize them to do it in Ghana. We should totally end all the incentives, the large incentives we give to the mining companies.
Do you think there is a misplaced priority? That's my last question.
Yeah, there is. In terms of this taxation and subsidies and exemptions, there's misplaced priority.
Because there are people who think that, I mean, for electric cars, how many people own electric cars in Ghana?
Okay. I mean, that is also a signal. In economics, it's not just about what is happening today. You can also signal people to go into those areas. So instead of importing the normal car, because I see there's an incentive in there, I will now decide to import. And that does take into our climate change and environment policy.
So lots of messages coming in, but unfortunately, let me. Dr. Kobna Nyakun Utu is the Director, Labor Research and Policy Institute of the Trades Union Congress. Doc, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We are happy to have had you here in the studio. We'll come back to you in the course of the year, and maybe the beginning of the year when we start actualizing the 2024 budget. My name is Kwesi Efie. Thank you very much for doing the watching, and of course, for those of you who have been texting, thank you very much as well. Good evening.